I was in a relationship with Amanda for 2 years and things were going great until she suggested opening up our relationship. I was hesitant but eventually agreed. Little did I know, she already had someone lined up. When I accidentally slept with her best friend Jasmine, everything exploded. Amanda completely lost it even though she was the one who wanted this arrangement in the first place. Before I tell you how this blew up in my face, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever had to navigate relationship drama like this, hit that like button and subscribe for more real talk about relationships gone wrong. I met Amanda at a house party thrown by a mutual friend. From the moment we started talking about our shared love of hiking trails around Boston, I felt an instant connection. She had this infectious laugh and a way of making everyone around her feel comfortable. We exchanged numbers that night, and within a week we were going on our first date to a small indie film festival downtown. Our relationship progressed naturally from there. We both enjoyed trying new restaurants, spending weekends exploring hiking trails, and having movie marathons on rainy Sundays. The conversations flowed easily between us, and we prided ourselves on our open communication. We talked about everything from our career goals to our family dynamics, and I really thought we had something special. After a year and a half together, moving in seemed like the logical next step. We found a cozy 2-bedroom apartment in Cambridge, and the first few months of living together were blissful. I loved coming home to her after a long day at the software development firm where I worked. Amanda had a tight-knit group of friends, but none closer than Jasmine. They had been best friends since their freshman year of college, and they had a weekly tradition of getting together for drinks or dinner. I always respected their friendship and encouraged Amanda to maintain those connections. I even joined them occasionally and thought Jasmine was great, though we never really spent time one-on-one. Looking back, I should have noticed the warning signs sooner. About 8 months after moving in together, subtle changes started appearing in our relationship. Amanda became more guarded with her phone, often taking calls in another room or texting with a slight smile she would quickly hide when I entered the room. Her nights out with friends, especially Jasmine, became more frequent. When I asked about her evening, her answers were vague and dismissive. Just the usual girl talk, she would say, or nothing interesting, just catching up. I tried to address these changes directly. One night after she returned from dinner with Jasmine, I asked if everything was okay between us. Amanda seemed surprised by the question and assured me everything was fine, that I was overthinking things. But that growing pit in my stomach told me something was off. There were moments when I would catch fragments of her phone conversations with Jasmine. They would immediately change the subject when they realized I was within earshot. I started questioning myself, wondering if I was being paranoid or if my insecurities were clouding my judgment. I had always considered myself a secure person, but the subtle shifts in our relationship were making me doubt everything. One Tuesday evening, Amanda suggested we have a special dinner at home. She prepared my favorite pasta dish and opened a bottle of wine we had been saving for a special occasion. The setting felt deliberate, which immediately put me on alert. Halfway through dinner, Amanda set down her fork and took a deep breath. "Claude, I want to talk to you about something that could really strengthen our relationship," she began, her voice measured and rehearsed. "What would you think about us having an open relationship?" The question hung in the air as I tried to process what she was suggesting. My fork paused midway to my mouth and I slowly set it down. "An open relationship," I repeated, making sure I had heard her correctly. She nodded enthusiastically. "I have been reading about how it can actually bring couples closer together. It allows for physical exploration without threatening the emotional core of the primary relationship." Her words sounded like they came straight from an article, not her heart. She continued explaining how progressive couples were embracing this concept, how it represented a modern approach to love and commitment. "Have you been thinking about this for a while?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "I have been discussing it with friends," she admitted. "Jasmine thinks it could be really healthy for couples who have a strong foundation." Of course, Jasmine was involved in this decision. I wondered if there was more to their conversations than Amanda was letting on. "I already have some ground rules in mind," Amanda continued, pulling out her phone where she had apparently made notes. "Full disclosure about any encounters, no mutual friends, and safe sex practices are non-negotiable. The specificity of her rules and her preparedness raised a red flag. This did not feel like a spontaneous idea, but rather something she had been planning to implement. I had the sinking feeling she already had someone specific in mind. For the next few days, I grappled with her proposal. The thought of Amanda being with someone else made my stomach churn, but the thought of losing her entirely was worse. I wondered if this was something I could adapt to, if my discomfort was just traditional programming that I could overcome. After nearly a week of internal struggle, I agreed to give it a try, but with additional conditions of my own. We sat down at our kitchen table to finalize the arrangement. I am willing to try this, I told her, but I need to add a couple of rules. We both have the right to veto any potential partner, and we need to have regular check-ins about how we are feeling. Amanda's face lit up with excitement that seemed disproportionate to the situation. She quickly agreed to my additions, and I could not shake the feeling that she had gotten exactly what she wanted a little too easily. In the days that followed, Amanda's behavior shifted even more. She started working late at the marketing firm, where she was employed as a graphic designer. Her phone became practically an extension of her hand, and she was constantly texting with a slight smile on her face. When I asked who she was texting, her answers were evasive. I realized I had two choices. I could continue in this uncomfortable limbo, slowly losing my self-respect, or I could take action. Little did I know that opportunity would present itself in the most unexpected way. It was a rainy Saturday morning when I decided to visit a coffee shop across town. I needed space to think away from our apartment, where every corner reminded me of the changing dynamics with Amanda. I chose a place I rarely visited, wanting anonymity and solitude. As I stood in line waiting to order, I heard a familiar voice behind me. Turning around, I was surprised to see Jasmine, Amanda's best friend. She looked equally startled to see me there. "Claude, what are you doing in this part of town?" she asked, a note of wariness in her voice. Our interaction was instantly awkward. We had always been friendly but had never spent time together without Amanda present. There was an invisible wall between us built by our mutual connection to her. "Just needed a change of scenery," I replied honestly. "How about you?" Jasmine hesitated before answering. "I live just around the corner. This is my regular spot." As we made small talk, I noticed her eyes were slightly red, as though she had been crying. Despite my own emotional turmoil, I found myself concerned. "Everything okay? You seem upset," I ventured. She glanced away, clearly uncomfortable. "Just going through some stuff. Nothing major." "Well, if you want to talk, I have nowhere to be today," I offered, surprising myself with the sincerity in my voice. Jasmine looked at me skeptically, then shrugged. "Sure, why not?" After getting our coffees, we found a quiet table in the corner of the shop. The initial conversation was stilted as we navigated the unfamiliar territory of talking to each other without Amanda as a buffer. "So what is actually going on?" I asked, after we had exhausted all small talk about the weather and the quality of the coffee. Jasmine sighed deeply. "Tyler and I broke up last week, 3 years down the drain. I knew Tyler was her long-term boyfriend, though I had only met him a handful of times. I am sorry to hear that." "What happened, if you do not mind me asking?" She twisted her coffee cup in her hands. "He said I was not making enough time for him, that I was always too busy with work or with Amanda." She gave a bitter laugh. "The irony is Amanda has been so wrapped up in her own world lately that I have barely seen her either." That caught my attention. "What do you mean?" "Oh, nothing really," she backpedaled, suddenly looking uncomfortable. "She has just been busy, I guess." Something in her expression told me there was more to the story. I decided to take a risk. "With that guy from her office," Jasmine's eyes widened. "You know about Michael." The name hit me like a physical blow. So he had a name. Michael. And clearly Jasmine knew all about him. "How long has that been going on?" I asked, fighting to keep my voice steady. Confusion crossed Jasmine's face. "Wait," I thought. "Amanda told me you suggested opening up the relationship. She said you wanted to see other people and she agreed to try it." The pieces suddenly clicked into place, and a cold sensation spread through my chest. "She told you it was my idea." Jasmine's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh God, it was not your idea, was it, Claude? I am so sorry. I would never have. Amanda told me they started seeing each other after you both agreed to open the relationship. When did they start seeing each other, Jasmine? I pressed, needing to know the full extent of the deception. She looked miserable. About 3 weeks ago, I think. She started talking about him maybe a week or two before that. The timeline confirmed my worst fears. Amanda had suggested opening our relationship after she had already developed feelings for Michael. Her excitement, her prepared rules, her increased secrecy with her phone. It all made perfect sense now. I cannot believe she lied to me about this. Jasmine continued, genuine distress in her voice. She made it sound like you were the one pushing for an open relationship and she was just going along with it. Well, now we both know the truth, I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. As our conversation continued, the awkwardness between us gradually dissolved. We discovered shared interests that Amanda had never mentioned: a love for true crime podcasts, an appreciation for classic rock, and surprisingly similar views on relationships and honesty. Hours passed as we talked, moving from the painful revelations about Amanda to more personal topics. I learned about Jasmine's dreams of opening her own photography studio, her close relationship with her younger brother who had autism, and her volunteer work at an animal shelter. These were all sides of her I had never seen during our brief interactions at group gatherings. I found myself genuinely enjoying her company, appreciating her direct communication style and thoughtful perspectives. The realization hit me suddenly: I was attracted to Jasmine, not just physically but intellectually and emotionally. A dangerous idea began forming in my mind. Technically, under the open relationship rules Amanda and I had established, Jasmine was not off limits. We had agreed to no mutual friends, but Amanda had already broken the spirit of our agreement by pursuing Michael before we even discussed opening the relationship. The thought of pursuing something with Jasmine felt simultaneously petty and exhilarating. Would it be wrong to act on this attraction? Was I just seeking revenge, or was there something genuine here worth exploring? Jasmine noticed my changed demeanor. "What are you thinking about? You got quiet all of a sudden." I hesitated, then decided honesty was the best approach. "This is going to sound terrible, but I was just thinking about how technically under the open relationship rules you and I could." I trailed off immediately, regretting my words. To my surprise, Jasmine did not look offended. She looked thoughtful. "That would be pretty messed up," she said slowly. "But then again, so is Amanda lying to both of us." Her response caught me off guard. "I was not seriously suggesting. We're not you." She challenged, a slight smile playing at her lips. I took a deep breath. "Okay, maybe I was. But it would complicate things between you and Amanda." "Things are already complicated," Jasmine replied. "She has been pulling away from our friendship ever since this thing with Michael started, and now I find out she has been lying to me too." We sat in charged silence for a moment, considering the implications. "Look," I finally said, "regardless of what happens or does not happen between us, I am going to talk to Amanda about what I know. I cannot continue living with this deception." "That is fair." Jasmine nodded. "And for what it is worth, I think you deserve better than how she is treating you." As the coffee shop began to close, we reluctantly prepared to leave. "Would you want to get dinner tomorrow night?" I asked. "Just to talk more and figure things out." Jasmine agreed, and we exchanged phone numbers for the first time. Walking home, my emotions were in turmoil. Part of me felt guilty for even considering pursuing her best friend, but another part felt justified given Amanda's deception. And beneath all that, there was a genuine spark with Jasmine that I could not ignore. I knew whatever decision I made would have serious consequences. I spent that night weighing my options, questioning my motivations, and trying to determine the most ethical path forward. The next evening, I met Jasmine at a small Italian restaurant in a neighborhood far from where Amanda and I lived. From the moment I saw her waiting outside, wearing a simple blue dress that complemented her eyes, I knew I was in trouble. This was not just about revenge anymore. The conversation flowed even more easily than it had the day before. We discovered a shared love of travel, both having backpacked through Southeast Asia in our 20s. We debated the merits of various film directors and found common ground in our appreciation for meaningful stories over special effects. "I cannot believe Amanda never mentioned how much we have in common," I said as we shared a tiramisu for dessert. "Maybe she worried we would get along too well." Jasmine replied with a wry smile. There was an undeniable chemistry between us, a magnetic pull that became stronger as the evening progressed. After dinner, when Jasmine suggested continuing our conversation at her apartment, I knew where the night was heading. I also knew I would have to face the consequences in the morning. Her apartment was a reflection of her personality, creative, warm, and thoughtfully arranged. Black and white photographs she had taken lined the walls, interspersed with colorful art pieces from her travels. One glass of wine led to meaningful conversation on her couch. Our discussion about relationships, trust, and honesty created an intimate atmosphere that naturally progressed to a moment of tension where we both fell silent, looking at each other. I should probably go, I said without moving. Probably, Jasmine agreed, equally stationary. When our lips finally met, it felt both wrong and completely right. The connection was electric and undeniable. What followed was an experience more genuine and connected than anything I had shared with Amanda in recent months. As morning light filtered through Jasmine's curtains, reality began to set in. We lay in comfortable silence, both contemplating the implications of what had happened. "No regrets?" she asked quietly. I thought about it honestly. About last night, no. About the conversation I need to have with Amanda, definitely not looking forward to that. "Do you want me to be there?" Jasmine offered. I shook my head. "This is something I need to do myself, but thank you." We agreed to talk later after I had spoken with Amanda. As I got dressed to leave, I felt a strange mix of guilt and certainty. Whatever happened next, I knew I had crossed a line that would forever change all of our relationships. I returned to my apartment mid-morning, expecting Amanda to be at her regular yoga class. To my surprise, she was sitting at our kitchen island scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I entered, her expression shifting from casual to concerned when she registered my appearance. "Where were you?" "Last night I texted, but you never responded," she said, her tone carrying just a hint of accusation. I set my keys down deliberately on the counter, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. "We need to talk, Amanda." Something in my voice must have alerted her that this was serious. She put her phone down, giving me her full attention. "Okay. What is going on?" I decided the direct approach was best. "I know about Michael from your office. I know you were seeing him before you suggested opening our relationship." Her face paled slightly, but she quickly composed herself. "What are you talking about? Please do not lie to me anymore," I said firmly. "I know the truth." Amanda's expression shifted from feigned confusion to defensive anger. "Who told you about Michael? Was it Jasmine? I cannot believe she would." "Yes, it was Jasmine," I interrupted. "I ran into her yesterday at a coffee shop. But that is not all we did." Amanda's eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" I took a deep breath. "I slept with Jasmine last night." There was a moment of stunned silence before Amanda's expression transformed into one of utter disbelief. "You what?" "You are joking, right?" "I am completely serious," I stated calmly. What followed was unlike anything I had experienced with Amanda before. The controlled, composed woman I knew erupted into a volcano of emotion. She jumped up from her stool, sending it crashing to the floor. "You slept with my best friend," she screamed, her voice rising to a pitch I had never heard. "How could you do that to me?" Her reaction was so disproportionate to the situation that I almost laughed, which would have only made things worse. "You wanted an open relationship," I reminded her, keeping my voice level. "We agreed to rules and I followed them." "Not with my best friend," she shrieked, grabbing a glass from the counter and hurling it against the wall where it shattered spectacularly. "That is completely different." "Why?" "We never said anything about friends being off limits," I pointed out. "Only mutual friends. And technically Jasmine is your friend, not ours." Amanda paced the kitchen like a caged animal, running her hands through her hair in agitation. "You know that is not what I meant. You did this to hurt me, like you started seeing Michael before even suggesting we open our relationship," I countered. "If we are talking about intent to hurt, let us start there." She froze mid-pace. "How do you know when I started seeing Michael?" "So you admit it," I said, feeling a strange calm despite the chaos unfolding around me. "You were already involved with him before our agreement." Amanda's strategy shifted instantly. It was nothing serious at that point, she said, her voice softening as she attempted damage control. Just flirting, maybe a lunch or two. I suggested opening our relationship because I did not want to cheat on you. That is still deception, Amanda. You presented it as something that would strengthen our relationship, not as a way to pursue someone you were already interested in. It is not the same as sleeping with my best friend, she cried, tears now streaming down her face. You deliberately chose the one person who would hurt me the most. There was some truth to her accusation which made me uncomfortable. It was not entirely deliberate, I admitted. Yes, I was angry when I found out you had lied to me. But Jasmine and I genuinely connected. This confession only seemed to enrage Amanda further. She grabbed more items from the counter, a mug, a book, a decorative bowl, and threw them in rapid succession. I dodged them easily, which only frustrated her more. You are lying. This is revenge, plain and simple. Maybe it started that way, I acknowledged, but it became something else. Something genuine. Amanda's face contorted with fury. I cannot believe you. And Jasmine, that backstabbing bitch, I have been friends with her since college. How could she do this to me? The same way you lied to both of us, I said quietly. You told her the open relationship was my idea. You manipulated everyone to get what you wanted. The fight continued to escalate as Amanda moved from rage to desperate bargaining and back again. In a particularly revealing moment, she admitted the full extent of her deception. Fine. Yes, Michael and I had already kissed before I suggested opening the relationship, she confessed, tears streaming down her face. I felt so guilty about it, but I also could not stop thinking about him. I thought an open relationship was the perfect solution. I could explore things with him without destroying what we had. Without giving me the truth to make an informed decision, I corrected her. Would you have agreed if I had been honest? She challenged. Probably not, I admitted. But that was my choice to make. As the argument continued, Amanda's primary concern became increasingly clear. She was less upset about my betrayal of our relationship and more fixated on Jasmine's betrayal of their friendship. I cannot believe she would do this to me after everything we have been through together, Amanda repeated frantically, trying to call Jasmine, who was not answering. Does she think she can just replace me in your life? This is not about replacing anyone, I said, growing weary of the drama. This is about honesty and respect, two things that have been missing from our relationship lately. The days that followed were tense and uncomfortable. Amanda cycled through various emotional states, rage, pleading cold, silence, tearful reconciliation attempts. She would alternate between professing her love for me and declaring that she would never forgive me for my betrayal. Throughout this emotional roller coaster, she continued her desperate attempts to contact Jasmine, leaving voicemails that ranged from vicious attacks to tearful apologies. Jasmine maintained her distance, responding only with brief texts stating that she needed space to think. Our apartment, once a sanctuary, became a battleground. I began sleeping on the couch to avoid the tension in our bedroom. Work provided a temporary escape, but I could not focus properly, my mind constantly returning to the chaos of my personal life. After nearly a week of this unsustainable situation, Amanda delivered her ultimatum over dinner. You need to choose, she said firmly. It is either me or her. You cannot have both of us in your life. As she laid out her terms for reconciliation, cutting all contact with Jasmine, recommitting exclusively to her, and essentially pretending the past month had never happened, I had a moment of absolute clarity. Amanda was not interested in healing our relationship. She was interested in winning. I finally saw the pattern that had defined our relationship for months. Amanda had consistently prioritized her desires over honest communication. When caught in her deception, her primary concern was maintaining control and saving face, not addressing the damage she had caused. In that moment, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I think we should end this relationship, I said quietly, setting down my fork and looking directly at Amanda. Her expression shifted from confident to shocked in an instant. She had clearly expected me to accept her ultimatum to choose the path of least resistance, as I had done when agreeing to the open relationship. You cannot be serious, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You are choosing Jasmine over me. After 2 years together, I am not choosing Jasmine over you, I clarified. I am choosing honesty over manipulation. I am choosing self-respect over comfort. Amanda's shock quickly transformed into desperate bargaining. "We can work through this, Claude. I will break things off with Michael completely. We can go to couples therapy. I will do whatever it takes." "The problem is not just Michael," I explained. "It is the fact that you created this entire situation based on deception. You only want to fix things now because your plan backfired." Over the next few weeks, the process of separating our lives proved challenging but necessary. Amanda alternated between hostile silence and desperate attempts to change my mind. She enlisted mutual friends to speak on her behalf, fabricated emergencies to draw me back in, and even showed up at my workplace one afternoon, creating a scene that left me embarrassed and resolved to expedite the separation process. I found a smaller apartment across town and gradually moved my belongings. Each item I packed represented another step toward reclaiming my integrity. The coffee maker we had bought together on weekend trip to Vermont, the books that had occupied our shared shelves, the framed photos I chose to leave behind. During this transition period, Jasmine and I maintained contact but agreed to proceed cautiously. The circumstances of our connection were complicated, and we both recognized the need to move forward thoughtfully. "I want to see where this goes," I told her during one of our phone conversations, "but I also need time to process everything that happened with Amanda." "I understand completely," Jasmine replied. "I am still dealing with the fallout too. Amanda has been telling everyone who will listen that we betrayed her. Some of our mutual friends have taken sides." Despite the external drama, I found unexpected support from people who understood the full situation. My coworker Jordan offered his truck to help with the move. My sister Caitlin, who had always been politely reserved around Amanda, admitted she had seen concerning behavior patterns long before I did. She always seemed to twist situations to make herself the victim, Caitlin observed, as she helped me unpack in my new place. "I am sorry it ended this way, but I am not sorry it ended." The first few weeks in my new apartment were an adjustment. After 2 years of sharing space with Amanda, the silence was sometimes deafening. There were moments of doubt late at night when I questioned my decision. Had I overreacted? Could we have worked things out if I had tried harder? In those moments, I would remind myself of the manipulation, the lies, and the emotional tornado that had characterized the end of our relationship. I would recall the calm certainty I felt when I finally stood my ground. Gradually, I established new routines. I joined a local rock climbing gym, something I had always wanted to try, but Amanda had dismissed as too dangerous. I reconnected with old friends who had slowly drifted away during my relationship. I redecorated my apartment to reflect my personal style rather than the compromise aesthetic Amanda and I had settled on. Jasmine and I continued to get to know each other, taking things slowly. We were both aware of the unusual circumstances that had brought us together and conscious of not building our connection on the foundation of shared hurt. Our first official date, nearly 2 months after the breakup, was to an outdoor photography exhibition. As we wandered among the large format prints discussing composition and lighting, I felt a genuine connection that was refreshingly uncomplicated. "You know what I appreciate most about you," I told her, as we sat on a park bench afterward sharing a pretzel. "You say exactly what you mean." She smiled. "After everything that happened, I do not think either of us has the energy for games anymore." 6 months later, as I helped Jasmine set up her first photography exhibition, I reflected on how dramatically my life had changed. The betrayal that had seemed so devastating had ultimately led me to a healthier relationship based on mutual respect and genuine communication. Amanda had eventually stopped her attempts to reconcile, especially after she and Michael made their relationship official on social media. According to mutual friends, she had rewritten our history, casting herself as the victim of my infidelity rather than acknowledging her role in the deception. I realized I no longer cared about her version of events. The people who mattered knew the truth, and I had finally learned to trust my own perceptions without needing external validation. Looking back on the entire experience now a year later, I can see how reluctantly agreeing to something that violated my values was the first step down a problematic path. By attempting to accommodate Amanda's desire for an open relationship despite my discomfort, I had compromised my own boundaries and set the stage for further disappointment. The most valuable lesson I learned is that trusting your gut instinct is crucial. When something feels wrong in a relationship, it usually is. Those subtle shifts in behavior, the increased secrecy, the defensive reactions to innocent questions, they were all warning signs I chose to ignore out of fear of losing someone I loved. I also learned the importance of maintaining personal boundaries. Healthy relationships require mutual respect for each other's limits. When one person repeatedly pushes against those boundaries, it creates an imbalance that ultimately undermines the foundation of the partnership. Perhaps most importantly, I discovered that sometimes relationships end not because they failed, but because they served their purpose in our growth journey. My relationship with Amanda taught me valuable lessons about self-respect, honest communication, and the courage to walk away from situations that no longer serve my highest good. Today, Jasmine and I continue to build something meaningful together. Our relationship is not perfect. No relationship is, but it is built on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect that feels sustainable in a way my relationship with Amanda never did. The worst betrayal I experienced ultimately led me to an unexpected new beginning. It forced me to clarify my values and strengthen my resolve to live authentically regardless of the short-term discomfort that might cause. Have you ever found yourself compromising your values to keep the peace in a relationship? What would you have done in my situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life relationship experiences. And if you know someone who might benefit from this story, share it with them. Sometimes we all need a reminder that protecting our self-respect is worth the temporary discomfort. Thank you for listening, and remember, the right person will not make you choose between love and your personal integrity.